Jennifer's body is one of the best kept secrets in the horror genre, and more people should give it a try. Now, over time, it does seem like more people are starting to recognize the greatness that is this movie, and that's evident by looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score where, Hold on. Y'all don't like this movie? I mean, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing since the 4 for 4, but damn, 35%? Now, the best thing about it is that it's one of the few horror films that isn't necessarily scary, or at least going out of its way to be, but still accomplishes what it sets out to do. The beauty with a movie like this is that it's very self-aware, which allows it to make fun of itself in a way that is unique, because the plot itself is very melodramatic, teensy, and yes, teensy is a word, because when I typed it, I didn't get the red squiggly line underneath it. So for the uninitiated that aren't familiar with the plot, basically, this devil-worshipping indie band comes to a small town looking to sacrifice a virgin in exchange for money and fame. They perform at a bar that they then set on fire and are able to get a girl to join them in their van as a result of the chaos. Yes, you heard that right. The kicker to this being that the girl turned out to not be a virgin, so when they sacrificed her, she actually lived and ended up becoming possessed by this demonic spirit that seems to need to feed on teenage boys in order to maintain good health. If it doesn't feed, then that girl starts to look like a girl who basically just woke up out of bed and is having the sickest cold in existence, basically showcasing that it's weak. Now, the girl of choice in this is none other than Megan Fox, who plays the girl Jennifer, and her best friend who ends up uncovering all of this information and has to deal with it all is the beautiful and talented Amanda Seyfried. Side note, little confession here. I've been a fan of Amanda since this movie, but just now writing my review for this movie, I just found out how to actually pronounce her last name. I always was like Seyfried, but no, it's just Seyfried, so I guess it kind of actually makes a little bit more sense. I mean, obviously it's her last name. But back to the plot, Megan Fox was Jennifer, like I said, hence the movie name, and Amanda's name was Needy, which I don't know if that was her real name or not yet. I feel like it was her real name, but her name was Needy. Everybody called her Needy. Even her mom called her Needy. So once Jennifer went on this killing spree, Needy started to suspect it was her, and eventually Jennifer actually confessed it was her. This led to them beefing and hit a climax where at prom, Jennifer tried to kill Needy's boyfriend as get back and ended up doing just that. Side note, her boyfriend is Young Neil. If you ever seen Scott Pilgrim, then you know who Young Neil is. What's funny is Needy kind of just let her go because I guess she wasn't well equipped enough to finish her off, so Jennifer healed up while Needy stood by her boyfriend as he transitioned, because Jennifer kind of messed him up a little bit and he definitely was going to be able to heal from those effects. Afterwards, Needy had her final showdown with Jen by sneaking in her bed at night and stabbing her through the chest with a box cutter. Yes, a box cutter. I don't know why I made it specific that it was a box cutter. I think I kind of expected it to be maybe like a steak. I don't know, like a piece of quartz or something. I don't know. Definitely didn't expect it to be a box cutter though. The conclusion of that ended up being Needy in a psycho asylum, which is the opening scene of the movie if you didn't notice. But that's not where it ends. So during their final fight, Jennifer bit Needy, and because she survived the bite, she was able to obtain some of the demon's power without requiring to be possessed by one. So she was able to break out of the asylum, and in the end credits, we see that she ended up hunting down the indie band who blew up and became the heroes of that town and took all of them out. By the way, I think it's funny how they didn't end up with fame and success from the ritual because, as I said, it was tainted, but instead they became famous because they pretended like they saved so many people during that bar burn down, and because most people died, people took their story and ran with it. Through the Trees was a cool little song though, it was a little bop. So if you take this movie seriously, then the plot and events are extremely silly, but this is labeled as a horror/comedy, and this movie has a bit of sarcastic melodramatic vibe to it that leads me to believe that they weren't trying to make people take it seriously. In fact, I would argue the contrary. Now, some of you would say maybe Megan Fox is fooling me because she's so bad of an actress that it almost comes across like she's being sarcastic. And hey, look, if that's your stance, I'll play ball with you, but you can't sit here and tell me that Amanda is also a terrible actress, because she's doing the same exact thing, and she's proven as an actress, even though Megan Fox still is also kind of proven. I mean, she's doing good in this movie, but I know how people feel about her. In Needy's case, she seems to be playing a caricature of a nerdy, goofy two-shoes teen, and Megan, or I guess Jennifer, is playing a caricature of a popular mean girl. Like, for example, during the final fight when Needy stabbed her in the chest and she started bleeding out, Jennifer asked if she had a tampon. Like, you really can't tell me that a movie that pulled a line out like that is trying to be a bone-shuddering experience. Which is funny to say because when this movie actually wants to get scary, it does a pretty good job of it. Like the scene where she went to Needy's house after the sacrifice. That whole thing was unsettling, and by the way, Megan Fox was actually doing a good job. Plus, I think the sacrifice scene as a whole is pretty good representation on how this movie tried to balance jokes with horror. By the way, I know that there's a lot of people who don't find the scene funny at all because they think the movie is based on the case of a teenage girl in 1995 who had a similar thing happen to her, but nobody working on the film has ever stated that to be a fact, and unfortunately, a group of guys taking a girl into the woods and performing a ritual on her isn't as uncommon as it very much should sound. Not to mention that before he starts, he literally stops mid-stab and asks her what her name was again, and the group proceeds to start singing on top of other little tongue-in-cheek moments that they had in that scene. Now, at the end of the day, feel how you want to feel. I'm not trying to be the emotional police out here, but I think it's pretty whack for getting mad at people who laugh at a comedy movie that's doing things in an attempt to be funny. Since we're on the topic of humor as well, another reason I like this movie so much is the amount of dark humor it threw at you and how well done the timing and a lot of it was. Like, I'll show a clip here of one that made me laugh a lot harder than I should have.
Today is the 1-month anniversary of the tragedy at Melody Lane, then the murder of Jonas Kozel.
Boring.
Now, don't get it twisted, this movie isn't without its gripes, and I do have a couple of things about this movie I didn't like. For instance, I think the final battle should have been at the prom and not split into a part 2 thing. I think that would have made Chip's death hit harder than they wanted it to, and it's just something about the bed fight that just made me feel like it just wasn't needed. Like, I get the whole underlying story in this movie is the behind the scenes hatred Jennifer had towards Needy, but the one-on-one fight that occurred didn't put a button on it like it should have. The only good thing to come out of it was that we saw Jennifer's mom's reaction to her lying there dead, which kind of put into perspective that even though she was running around being a demon, literally, she was still a teenage girl. Also, the scenes of her actually taking out the dudes I thought could have been better and leaned more into the horror elements. Like, the guy in the woods was okay, and the emo kid in the abandoned house was pretty gnarly when it showed her drinking the blood out of his stomach, but I just wish we got maybe 2 or more of those maybe leaned into the more creepy side of it type of situations. I feel like with that, it would have added to the threat that she was and would make Needy killing her a more wow she really did it moment. All in all, I think this movie has cult classic written all over it. I think the people who don't like this movie may never come around to liking it, but those that do like it actually love it and hold it in high regard like myself. Grade rating, we're going A- here. This may be my first controversial rating on this channel, but I'm fine with that. I'll defend this movie to anybody. It's not on my Mount Rushmore, but it's definitely in my top 20, arguably top 15 favorite movies of all time. I would have to think though, because I've never actually put together a list, which, you know, obviously would be fun for a video, but until my next one, peace and light, and remember to eat your veggies.